Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's presentation from L-3 Aviation Products on ADS-B technology, and more specifically, L-3's revolutionary Lynx ADS-B multi-links surveillance system. My name is Jeff Simon. I'm president of SocialFlight. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'd like to welcome you to the SocialFlight community. SocialFlight is a free web and mobile app dedicated to supporting general aviation. We do that by gathering tens of thousands of general aviation events and destinations. We map them, we make them available to you at socialflight.com or on your phone or tablet using the SocialFlight mobile app. From fly-ins to pancake breakfasts, air shows, FAA seminars, $100 hamburger destinations, it's all in SocialFlight, and it's because our mission is to bring the aviation community together, give pilots like yourselves more reasons to get out there and fly. With over 50,000 pilots already using SocialFlight to plan their next adventure, we sincerely hope that you will all leave here and check it out for yourselves. Now, in addition to events you can fly to, we also have online events, which is why we're all here tonight. So before we get started, here's a few tips. A recording of tonight's presentation will be available on socialflight.com, usually within a few hours of the end of the presentation, but definitely by tomorrow. We'll send you a link for this recording by email after the presentation. Now, during the presentation, feel free to post questions, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. There's two ways you can post questions. You can do that in the Q&A feature, or you can also do that in the chat section. And we'll try to help moderate that as much as possible during the presentation. One more item regarding audio. I do recommend using the dial-in for audio versus your computer. We found that works best for some people. So, we are very fortunate to have a very special presenter tonight. Mark Lindsley has been flying for over 30 years, having first soloed in a J3 Cup. His flight instructors along the way included his grandmother, his grandfather, and his dad. So I'm guessing he had to pay more than the rest of us to get his wings, but probably in different ways. Mark's an ATP, CFI, and a designated pilot examiner. And he's also the proud owner of a 1955 Cessna 170 and a 1946 Taylorcraft. So with that, thank you again for joining us, and I will hand it over to Mark.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And a nice shout out to SocialFlight for running this website, this app, and just providing the pilot community a platform that we can take ownership of and get involved with, and organizing this webinar for us. We really, there's not a whole lot out there like this, and so a quick hats off to you for that. And thanks for the introduction. Yeah, you're right, I did have to pay in more than one way, and the truth is the reason my grandma ended up having to teach me was because she was the one who got me my private pilot certificate, because my grandfather and my dad made me cry so much in the airplane as a teenager. So I was basically, man, if it wasn't for her, I'm not sure I'd be here flying today. But with that being said, we're here to talk about ADS-B. So let's move on to the next slide here. Like I said, I work for L-3 Avionics Systems here, and we fly a fleet of small GA airplanes. This is our BE-58 Baron, and one of the great opportunities we have is we've got all kinds of weather information and technologies we get to use and compare. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking to you about tonight I've been experiencing firsthand for the last several years. We currently have this Baron with a G500 and XM weather in it, ADS-B weather in it. We also have Stormscope and weather radar. So it's really kind of nice to be able to compare all these pieces of information to kind of get an idea of what these will look like next to each other. Okay. So we've been listening to these ADS-B seminars for the last couple years, and they get a little redundant. So we're going to do a brief description of what ADS-B is, and we're really going to get down to the tactical side of what we need to do as far as making decisions for our personal airplanes. But before we do that, I just want to do a quick overview of what ADS-B is. 80, automatic. This is a little bit different than what we've had in the past. We've had Mode C transponders that when they're interrogated, then they respond. It's no longer like that. Every 1 second, this ADS-B device is going to be transmitting packets of information. D, dependent. It's dependent upon WAAS GPS for position, velocity, and actual turn rate as well. Surveillance. This is the new system that the FAA is going to be using for ATC surveillance. And it's more than just aircraft in the air. It's going to be snow plows, fuel trucks, aircraft on the ground. And then broadcast. This is going to be the transmitting of this information both ways. And a lot of you guys, you're familiar with it. That's why you're on this webinar. It's the way we get information in the cockpit and the way we send our cockpit information back to ATC. Okay, so let's continue with what is ADS-B. Next slide. Thanks, Jeff. We need to just touch on one facet here. The FAA chose a different route than the rest of the world. We have a dual band solution. We used a 1090 megahertz frequency and a 978 megahertz frequency to meet this entire mandate. Now, above 18,000, everyone is required to have 1090. That's your typical Mode S extended squitter transponder. Below 18,000, you have the option of choosing either 1090 or a UAT solution. UAT basically is 978. The 978 frequency is where you get all the free information, the weather and so on. We'll talk about that later, but we need to just divide it up so we understand this. And one of the things to remember, the UAT or 978 frequency is for the continental US only. They're not using it in Europe, they're not using it in Canada. It won't be used around the world. 1090 is the worldwide standard. Let's keep going. Okay, so what is ADS-B out? What is ATC actually getting from you? Before, with your Mode C transponder, they interrogated you, they got a squawk code, and they got your altitude. But today, what they're getting GPS position, WAAS GPS position, your GPS and barometric altitude, velocity, length, width of aircraft, your transponder code, your tail number or call sign. They get whether you have ADS-B in the cockpit, so they know if you have access to weather information. They get the rate of turn and even more information, and it's all sent once per second. You look at some of this stuff and you think, why do they have this? Length and width aircraft. You could have two air transport aircraft taxiing on opposing taxiways, and a guy in the ground control computer could immediately tell that these airplanes can't pass each other because they're too big. Or taxiways that have weight limits, and they would know it. They'd be able to keep track of snowplow trucks, fuel trucks, all this information that we know do not have access to today in our current system. It really is going to be a next-gen source of information. So you look at rate of turn. Right now, when we deal with traffic alerts and traffic systems, TCAS, you're interrogating a transponder, and then you're finding a range and bearing and then displaying it on your display. With ADS-B, you can actually get the projected rate of turn with the algorithms of what the GPS is showing and know if you'll have a possible collision course in the future. It won't just look at the pure location. It's going to look at the future location of that aircraft as well. So it's quite an advanced system when it comes to monitoring and controlling traffic. Okay, so when it comes to ADS-BN, the big questions are traffic and weather. This is what we know we have access to if we get into this system. So traffic can be received whether you bought one of those 1090 devices, which we talked about earlier, have to be operated above 18,000, but you could purchase one and use it anywhere in any airplane, or a 978. So a single band solution is not a complete solution. What I mean by that is sometimes people say, hey, I've got an ADS-B compliant solution. I have a 1090 transponder, and they're out in a remote area. Let's say he's in a Cessna Citation making an approach to landing in a remote Idaho airstrip, and there's a Cessna 150, and the Cessna 150 is out there, and he's got a 978 UAT solution. So he thinks he's met the mandate. They're both right. They've met the mandate. But the problem is when that 150 turns base and he just thinks he has all the traffic information out there, we need to realize 1090 is a different frequency than 978. Those two devices don't speak the same language. They can't speak with each other. So you don't have the total picture in that scenario. Now, let's say that they move over a little bit closer to St. Louis, and there's a ground station nearby. Same scenario. That Cessna 150 is turning on downwind, and he's about to turn base, and he takes a look at his traffic display, and he does see that Cessna citation because what he's receiving is ADSR, and that citation is on final, and he actually can see the 150 too, the 150 as well. The reason being is when you're within a ground station reception, the ground station translate the code and resend it towards the other airplane. So that makes the 1090 guy be able to see a 978 and vice versa when you're in a ground station area. That's how the traffic system works. A single band solution is not a complete solution. Dual band is a much better solution if you had a way to receive 1090N as well as 978N. Weather. Let's talk about weather real quick. One of the most common misunderstandings is that if you have an ADS-B compliant solution, you will get free weather. 1090 is not capable of receiving all of this free weather information or free information from the FAA. That's going to be your Mode S extended squitter type transponder. It doesn't have the capability of receiving that data. The FAA is only sending that free weather information via 978. That's the UAT. That's where you get NEXRAD, METARs, TFRs, AirMets, SIGMETs, and there'll be more. There'll be more information coming in the future. So here's something I run into, a common question when I go to trade shows, you know, and we talk about XM weather, because that free of charge really is something. I think XM weather is running like $69 a subscription per month right now. And when you look at that $69, you're looking at over $800 a year. And I run into guys say, hey, you know what, the XM weather is better. And this is a personal decision. I'll talk to you a little bit about the difference between the two, because I'm using them both on a weekly basis. XM does have some features that your FISB is not going to have yet. They have lightning. They have some other information, cloud tops that's available that FISB is not providing yet. Now, they are charging $69 a month, and you get it on the ground. So you could be taxiing your airplane, and you're receiving it from a satellite on the ground. Where FISB, at most airports, you're not going to get it until you're at the traffic pattern altitude, or at least above, because it's a ground-based solution. It needs line of sight. So I do run into customers say, hey, you know, that XM is better. It has a better demarcation of weather, radar pictures, and it gives me lightning information, etc. So a couple things to think about. I personally, after using XM and data link next to each other the last really couple of years in our own airplanes, if I had to pay the bills of the flight department, I wouldn't pay for the XM. It gives the FISB weather gives me what I need to make the decisions. When I'm on the ground, I have 4G on my phone and iPad, so I can pick up any weather information on the ground. I usually am picking up all this information in the air, and it's giving me a lot of information. Winds aloft, temperatures aloft, the NEXRAD weather picture, etc. And in the future, the FAA right now is discussing a path to give us lightning, turbulence, icing, and cloud tops. So they are expanding this FISB information. So something to think about. There is a big savings when you go to a FISB system over your typical data link XM weather system. Okay, when do I need to complete my ADS-B? We talk 2020 all the time. The problem with that is we begin to think it's a long ways away. The truth is, come December 31st, 2019, that is when you have to have an ADS-B solution if you're going to continue to operate in the airspace where it's required. I run into a lot of end users at shows and seminars, and they say, hey, you know what, I'm going to wait. Prices will get better. Someone will give me a better deal. Equipment, technology will get better. And you know, and that's everyone's right. You know, we're Americans and we don't like mandates. However, a lot of the guys I'm talking to, these people have been in GA and have not experienced some of the previous mandates that we've had. We had a TAWS mandate in 2002, and we had an RVSM mandate in 2005. I mean, the TAWS mandate, avionics shops are talking about to this day because there was so many airplanes on the ramp that had to have the TAWS mandate that couldn't fly because, you know, the FAA said if you got over 9 seats in a turbine engine aircraft, you have to have terrain awareness and warning system on board. That was the TAWS. And they made a lot of money, and there was a lot of backlog, and it was a big deal. Now remember, TAWS was just for airplanes with 9 seats and turbine engines. we're talking about every airplane. And I could quote you the numbers, the statistics. We hear them once a week from the FAA or different presenters. We don't have enough shops. We're going to have back-ordered equipment from manufacturers. And that's why the FAA, the manufacturers, everyone's doing as much as they can to encourage people to upgrade, whether it be through the rebate program or marketing from your manufacturers. So something to think about when you're looking at this is you will end up paying more the longer you wait, and you may actually have to be stuck on the ground for a while, especially if you're operating underneath a Class Bravo Mode C veil. 2019 is only 36 months away. So, okay, so here we're going to get into L3 solution and kind of the tactical side of the decisions you need to make for your own personal airplane. We think we've created a pretty nice line of solutions that would meet any GA aircraft's needs. So we'll go right to the next slide and we'll start walking through some of these solutions. You remember earlier when we talked about some aircraft can get by with just a 978 solution, a UAT solution, if you're going to operate below 18,000. That's some questions you need to think about right off the bat. Am I always going to be operating below 18,000? Most of us in GA are. I mean, I fly a 1955 170. It won't hardly get over 10,000. You look at these decisions. And another thing to think about is your transponder that you have in the airplane. Because if you are going to go down the UAT solution over here on the left, you need to have a transponder. And I told you about my airplane. What I didn't tell you is I have a narco transponder in there, and that's 30-plus-year-old technology. The last time I had to bring that thing in for a biannual check to get it certified, it cost me $600 to repair it. And that was knowing this mandate was coming. So I get this transponder repaired, and I'm repairing over 30-year-old tube technology. If you go with a UAT solution and you have a legacy transponder like myself, an old KT-76 or narco transponder or something like this, that is going to be a link in that chain. And it will be the weak link because those transponders are getting older. Parts to repair them are becoming harder. Places to get them repaired are becoming impossible for some of them. So think about that when it comes to deciding if a UAT solution is for me. The other thing to think about is if you did have a digital transponder, let's say you just spent good money on a GTX 327 and it will never meet the mandate. There's no way to make it meet the mandate. Or a 330 and you don't have a WASP GPS in your airplane. These make great transponders and they drive these UAT boxes perfectly. It's a digital transponder. It drives the box, and you have a complete solution with your existing transponder, and you have a good piece of equipment in the airplane that you know is going to last for a little while. So it's something to think about. Every one of our boxes here, when you look down the line, has its own internal WASP GPS. So that this shouldn't be even a factor if you have a WASP GPS sensor in your airplane or not. We've met the mandate with the required GPS location in every one of our boxes. Okay, with all that being said, let's start with the first box, the NGT-9000. I meet a lot of people at shows that say, hey, just tell me about the lowest cost solution you have. And we go to the NGT-1000 and I describe its feature. This is the meet the mandate product we have. It has its own internal WASP GPS and it's a UAT device. So what it will do is it'll take that transponder code, package it with that long list of required ADS-B information and broadcast it out and you meet the mandate. However, I tell people, don't go down this route. And the reason I say that is, I hope my boss isn't listening, but the reason I say that is you're just paying the tax. You're paying the government tax. You don't get any real benefit out of it. That's why we don't like mandates. We see it as a tax. So I really encourage people, if you want to go down that route, move to the 2000. One step up, our NGT-2000 is ADS-B in and out. This device will do the same thing, use the transponder code, package it, meet the mandate, send the information, but it's also going to receive that free weather and traffic from the ground stations that are already out there and operating, and it will send it via Wi-Fi to your iPad or your Android device and whatever app you're using. So that's a great solution to get you some ADS-B in. Now the only difference between the 2000 and the 2500 is the 2500 has hardwired capabilities to actually display it not only on your personal device, but also on a multifunction display. So you could take that weather and traffic and display it. You could display the weather and traffic on your Aspen multifunction display, or you may have a Garmin Legacy 430 in your airplane. You could display all the traffic on your 430 from that device. Those are your UAT solutions. Now, another thing to think about when you're looking at these UAT solutions, and this is something that I think about too, because I'd like to take a trip in the 170 with my dad to Alaska or spend some time in Canada in the airplane. Canada's not going to have a UAT solution. Their mandate is going to be 1090. If you know that you're going to be leaving the country or flying this airplane outside of the continental U.S., the UAT solution may not be the best direction for you either. And then you're going to move over to this dual band solution. So you look on the right, this is our NGT-9000. This is the best selling product in the history of L-3, and we're quite proud of some of the features and benefits we've driven into this box. It also has its own internal WAAS GPS, and it is a 1090 Mode S extended squitter transponder. You're getting a new transponder. The idea is you take your transponder out of the airplane and you put this device in, which is much more than a transponder. It's going to have ADS-B weather. It's going to have traffic. It'll be able to Wi-Fi to your personal device, and it will also be able to hardwire to a PFD or a multifunction display as well. It also allows you to have an upgrade path for future features. You look at the device, there's no hard keys on it, so I mean it's very software driven. Let's take a look at the next slide. So, like I said before, it's a Mode S in and out device, a UAT in, so it's getting that free weather and traffic from the 978. It's got its own internal GPS. It's actually broadcasting that WAAS GPS location via Wi-Fi to your iPad. So if you're using SocialFlight, that little airplane you see on there is your WAAS GPS location being broadcasted from your Lynx device. It has resistive touchscreen, and it has multi-function display and PFD interfaces, and then Wi-Fi for your apps as well. We'll talk about multifunction displays. It'll display traffic on just about any multifunction display you can think of out there. It'll hardwire to it. We can display weather on the Legacy iLink, MX-20s, GMX-200s, Aspen, and I found out this week that we just finished testing of Avidyne's 10.2 software upgrade, and we will, in the future, when they release that software, be displaying our weather and traffic on the 540, 440 navigators as well. So it becomes really the best of every possible route you could take. Apps. Let's talk about apps real quick. That's always a big question. We display our weather and traffic on SocialFlight, WingX, SkyRadar, Flight Plan Go, FlyQ, EFB. There's a couple others out there as well. Those are the big ones that most people use, and we're always willing to add apps. So if there is app manufacturers out there saying, hey, we'd like to be able to display your weather and traffic, call us up. There's no secrets with us. It's all open protocol information. We want you to be able to display our weather and traffic. So, okay, this is our simulator. And what we're going to do today is we're going to actually go through an online simulation of the functionality of this device. Seeing it is believing it. Seeing it live is the best possible option. This is our second best, to be able to do it via this website. One of the things to remember is if you go personally to L-3links.com on your PC on another day after this webinar, you can always play around with this simulator. Second thing to know is you can download this app on your iPad or your Android from the sites there listed as well. You just go to that little icon once you see, once you Google or list L-3 Lynx, look for that little arrowhead there, the ADS-B symbol, and download the app from there. And then you have actual simulator to work with on your iPad, and it's very close in size, so you can say, hey, this really is a very usable piece of glass. Let's go to the simulator, Jeff, and see if we can walk through that. Okay. One of the things, Jeff, if you wouldn't mind, let's slide that back to the transponder page on the left screen. And one of the things to think about when you do this simulator is the technology we used with the Lynx NGT-9000 is resistive glass. So it's not quite like your phone where if you barely touch it, it works. Our human factors engineers said that we wanted to make sure that when you touch it, you're really touching it. So it takes a little bit of force. On the real device, you have to actually press a little bit harder. You can't just lightly touch it. So you know when you're pressing something, you're not doing it with a false touch. You get the touch that you want. The other thing you notice is a lot of people say, man, how can you put a multifunction display on the face of a transponder? There's no hard keys on this device. So it's all display. I mean, my kids are watching movies on my iPhone now. It's just display technology gets better and better every week. And when you see this, you'll really look at it and go, man, that is a usable piece of glass. So with that being said, on the bottom of the first page, you see the pages are divided in two. On the left-hand side, you have your transponder page, and you see two dots on the bottom. There's 2 pages on the left side of the split screen, and there's 4 pages on the right side. Now when I operate this system, I put my transponder code in by going up. Go ahead and click on the transponder code for us, Jeff. And we'll put in 4 numbers. And once that's in, I put done, and it's there. But rather than stare at 4 numbers, like we have been for years on our transponder, I take that page and I swipe it. I press my finger where that mouse is, I pull it to the side, and I take it to a traffic page. Now this is my ADS-B traffic. Go ahead and click on that aircraft that's 400 feet above us. Thanks, Jeff. You notice an information eye popped up. We click on that information, and we get a flight ID. We can tell who that airplane is, what type of airplane it is, and what their ground speed is. This is all part of the information packet being sent out by ADS-B, and we have access to it, and we can display it right on our screen. It's really quite nice. It seemed like a gee whiz function at first, but then when ATC starts wanting you to stay clear, keep your eye on a certain traffic, and then you find that target, and then you go back to flying the airplane, you may lose it. I like to immediately touch that airplane and keep tracking it. Go ahead and push done, Jeff, and we'll move on from that. And I can keep tracking that airplane the whole time. So anytime I want to look up, I can go up. There he is. He's highlighted, and I keep my eyes on that target. So it's a nice feature there. Okay, let's move to the right page. On the right page, we have our weather pages. Right now, we're looking at the graphical weather page. I told you that ADS-B-N is going to give you airmets, sigmets, weather radar. It's going to color code your airports, either IFR, VFR, marginal VFR. It'll show you TFRs, all on this graphical page. So sometimes when I'm looking at a graphical page like this flying, I'm like, what is that hash box going to give me an indication of? Let's go up there, Jeff, and just click on the orange box. And then hit the information button when it's highlighted. And up comes the actual airmet. So we have an airmet, looks like for IFR and snow and some just poor weather conditions. Let's go up and click on the red box. And we get a sigmet. We get a sigmet up there at Oscoda, and it's basically going to be, looks like thunderstorms, or who knows what information was put in here by our marketing guys. But either way, look at the red dots on there. You click on one of those red circles, actually inside the sigmet, and then hit the NOTAM. And there is a TFR for a sporting event. And it looks like, you know, Central Michigan is going to be playing a football game or something like that, etc. All that information is available at the graphical level. And a lot of end users, sometimes they get the device and they don't even take Well, we're pilots. We don't read pilot's guides, do we? We just take it and start playing with it. And what happens is we don't realize all the functionality. When you use this device, you can't really hurt it. You can't get confused. You can't get into too many pages. Just touch it. You keep touching it until you see what it does. Let's push done on the left page with that TFR. And then let's swipe our right screen one more page to the right. And we'll take a look at the aloft page. We also have a page that's going to show us winds and temperatures aloft. If you go over there on the left side of the right page, you click the temperature button, and up comes the winds aloft page. And this will give us 3,000 winds aloft at 3,000 feet. And if we click at the actual flight level, we can go up in altitude, and we get the forecasted winds aloft at higher altitudes, and we see what the best winds for our flight is. I use this feature all the time. I love having a dedicated page with winds aloft that I just can quickly swipe to. And lastly, we'll swipe over to the last page, and it's our textual information. Our textual information has the ability to enter airports. If you click up there on the airport box, and right now let's just put in KGRR. For Grand Rapids, Michigan. We'll push done. Up will come the TAF in Grand Rapids. And we could actually add that to our favorites list when we did it. And then you have a list of airports that could be put in there. We'll go back to that page. Go ahead and click on TAF right now though, Jeff. And you can also pull up NOTAMs or METARs and take a look at the actual textual information. I love this feature because when I'm flying back into Grand Rapids from a long ways away, and there's a lot of frequency congestion, I can pull up the weather conditions at the airport. I'm getting the NOTAMs and the weather conditions before I even dial up ATIS to get it. I have all that information, and it's very current within the system. So these are all the features that we have within the transponder device. One of the nice things about this device is you get a multifunction display. And another variable you need to think about when installing this type of equipment is you've had a transponder for years buried in a spot where you dialed in 4 numbers and you forgot about it. And I've noticed a lot of end users when they select this product decide to put it up in that center stack a little higher than normal. Matter of fact, I most often see it right below the audio panel. There's the audio panel, then there's the Lynx touchscreen display, and then below that they've got KX 175s, 170s, 155s, Garmin 430s, you name it, below the actual panel. We have it and with G1000s, G500s, it's been used with just about every possible display. So, and it looks really great. That's kind of a good touch and feel interface to the actual unit and how it works. And it's not all the features, but it gives you an idea of how it would work in your cockpit as well. So let's take a look at our next slide, and one of the best features of this device is the upgrade path. The NGT-9000, like I said before, it has no hard keys on the bezel. It's software driven. We've provisioned for memory and processing power capable to add software enablements as we go along. And since we've started it, we've already been adding some of these upgrades. ATAS is the first one. A lot of people ask me, what's ATAS? The FAA creates TSOs, or how you're going to alert people of traffic, like audio alerts, traffic, 12 o'clock high. Now in the past we've had TAS TSOs and TCAS-1 TSOs. We're very familiar with TCAS-1. Well, for ADS-B traffic alerts, ATAS is the FAA required TSO that needs to be met. It's a bunch of rules that have to be applied. We're the only ADS-B system that meets the ATAS TSO, the only one on the market right now. And one of the benefits that you guys have from actually listening to this webinar is you have you'll have the ability to use a ATAS certificate to actually enable your device for audio alerting. Now, the reason this is important is in the past, basically, traffic alerting just turns off at the traffic pattern altitude because TAS systems were never capable of actually alerting you of other airplanes in the traffic pattern. And the reason being is they didn't have the information. So if they ever saw an airplane within a mile, they just started going traffic, and it became a nuisance. So they would just turn off before you got to the area where you wanted it the most, the traffic pattern. The nice thing about ATAS, and I've noticed this using it, is it works down to the ground. And the reason it does is because the ATAS has got your WAAS GPS location, your WAAS GPS speed, and it also has your turn rate. It knows all this information, and they can build complex algorithms to decide whether that target or that other airplane is actually going to be a conflict. You could have two airplanes in the traffic pattern, both on downwind, one of them within a mile of the other. You're not going to get nuisance alerting with an ATAS because it knows, hey, you're going 90 knots, he's going 90 knots, or he's turning, and you're going straight. There's going to be no nuisance alerting. With that being said, when you do get an ATAS alert, you better start looking for an airplane because it's a real alert and you got to find it. Either way, this is one of the first upgrades we've offered to our users. It's the first and only right now ATAS certified ADS-B device on the market. And today, for everybody who attended the meeting, it's free of charge. So let's take a look at the next upgrade path available. This one's my favorite. I've been working for L-3 for a little over 10 years now, and I spend most of my time selling our Skywatch systems. With a group this large, I'm pretty sure there's several of you out there with a Skywatch system. It's a great box. I love selling it. It was a fun product to sell. Now this product was a 9-pound box that went into an avionics bay, and actually with that TCAS antenna was able to interrogate targets around you, Mode C targets or Mode S targets, and then get a relative range and bearing and display that traffic. People loved it. Once they got that, they couldn't believe the amount of airplanes flying around them. Well, Avidine came out with another great product that did very similar things, and Garmin 10 years later came out with another product that did very similar things. They're 9-pound boxes. They're about the same size. They do the same thing. I don't know how our engineers did it, but inside that NGT-9000 box is an active traffic card. It's basically TCAS in your transponder. With a TCAS type antenna, you could then interrogate all targets. This becomes the most comprehensive traffic system out there. And the reason being is there'll be a few stragglers out there who don't do the ADS-B upgrade. Guys in Cessna 140s out in remote areas with Mode C transponders. You can't pick those guys up with ADS-B if they're outside of a radar service area. So basically, your TCAS system could, and it's going to blend that traffic data for you. Now keep in mind, a few years ago we were selling this technology for $15,000, and now it's inside your transponder, and it's ready when you want it to turn it on. If you even decide to sell the airplane to a Canadian, and he moves the airplane north and he thinks, man, I don't have this UAT free traffic in Canada. Well, he could then actually turn on the active traffic portion with a software enablement, add the antenna, and he picks up targets all across Canada where they don't have a ground network. Same thing in Europe, etc. It really is the most affordable TAS system out there. It's in your box, ready for you when you want it, and you don't have to pay for it to begin with. So that's, to me, it is the coolest feature that's in this box. I don't even know how they did it, but that's why I'm in sales and not engineering. So next slide, let's take a look at the next upgrade. ETAWS. Remember how earlier I told you guys in 2002 there was a TAWS mandate, and there was airplanes lined up on ramps trying to get it done. This was a Class B TAWS requirement that came out, and inside this box we thought, you know what, why don't we add TAWS? If you have an airplane out there that needs TAWS and they want it, we'll sell it to them. They can turn on TAWS. This terrain advisory and warning system basically allows for us to download the worldwide database or North American database, depending on where you fly. In there, it takes your WAAS GPS location and it will give you the proper terrain warnings necessary to meet the mandate and keep you from running into any obstacles or the ground, especially if you require. That's in the box, capable of being turned on just via software. And you notice, as we add these features, you look down on the bottom right side of that ADS-B screen, and now we're up to 5 dots. We just load the software and add a page. Let's go to the next feature. Stormscope. We are the manufacturers of the WX500 of all the Stormscope. I believe we sold over 60,000 Stormscopes. The WX500 is one of our most popular units, and I use it all the time. I love it. That's a whole other webinar we should probably do someday, Jeff, where we talk about the value of Stormscope or live lightning data. But either way, next software level, I think we're going to be releasing it this month in December, 2.1, has free Stormscope interface. If you got a WX500 in your airplane, you could plug it into your Lynx transponder device, and now you have live lightning data on your display as well. That's where you really get the full picture of what's going on in the weather. Weather radar doesn't give you the full picture. That's just going to give you where most of the precipitation is. But cumulus and mature thunderstorms have a lot of lightning in the clouds that even ADS-B and XM weather can't show you. They just show you cloud-to-ground strikes. But that's a whole other seminar. I need to get off my soapbox. So let's move to the next slide. So in summary, the NGT-9000 really is the only box that does it all. We're doing Mode S, extended squitter transponder. You're getting a new transponder out of it. We're doing a UAT receiver. You're getting the free weather and traffic to the device. You're getting a WASH GPS in the box that meets the mandate. You're getting a display that shows you all the information all in one device. Plus, it has this upgrade path that you don't have to pay for now, that in the future you have the capability of turning on features that other manufacturers are charging a lot of money for other boxes for. It really is the best option I've seen out there for future growth. So that's the NGT-9000 really in a nutshell. I think that's about it. Let's take a look at the last slide. Oh yes, the website. The last slide, if you have any questions or you want to look at that simulator on your PC, go to www.l-3lynx.com. We got an FAQ section there. We bring up marketing bulletins. We've got the simulator. One of the things I didn't mention was, you know, some of you may be thinking about that NGT-2000 that we talked about in an earlier slide. That's our in and out device that will just Wi-Fi the information to your iPad. We're actually running a promotion right now through December 31st where we'll match any one of our competitors' certified ADS-B out solution. So if one of our competitors is selling just a meet the mandate, pay the tax box, we'll give you in and out for the same price. You go to your avionics shop, tell them you want to do it, they send in the marketing bulletin from our competitor and we'll match the price with in and out. So that's a great solution. If that's the solution for you, now's the time to really take advantage of that in and out solution before December 31st, when that marketing bulletin will expire. But otherwise, that's the end of the presentation here. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Mark. That you know, I absolutely love that box, and I'm on the list. We over here at SocialFlight have a Bonanza 836, and we are absolutely on the list to upgrade and get that, because how do you look at that and not kind of drool all over the place? So why don't we shift gears now and go over to take some questions. Now, all the questions come in via chat or via the Q&A section there, and so feel free to type your questions in. We already have a list, so we'll do what we can in the time allowed. We will be ending at 9. And just another reminder for everyone that we are recording the presentation tonight, and that recording will be available beginning tomorrow within SocialFlight. So if you missed anything or you'd like to check it out or just send it to someone else, that will be available there. In addition to that, you will get information after the presentation emailed to you, both for how to get to the recording as well as for that ATAS certificate. So don't worry about being passed over for that. That will show up. You'll get information about that in your email. Now, moving to some questions in the long list that we have here. You know, one of the things that I've experienced, even with ADS-B solutions, I'll preface that by saying non-L3 ADS-B solutions that I've flown with, is still having the challenge of ghosting, which is duplicates or seeing your own aircraft. Can you talk a little bit about that and give us some information about that, Mark?
Ghosting, it can be a problem with just RF technology, antenna locations. There's a lot of different variables to why you might receive ghosting. It could even bounce off runway environments. It's an anomaly that happens with a lot of other devices. The L-3 devices, I have seen ghosting in the past, but I fly these things hundreds of hours a year, and I don't usually see ghosting at all.
Okay, I know we've had a few questions about that. I have seen it myself when flying, but I know that it's a kind of a common enough issue that my understanding is there is an FAA site for reporting locations for it, and then they go and investigate what they need to do on their end with the ground-based transmitters to try to deal with that. Another question that we got here was a question about PIREPs. Can you comment on the availability of PIREPs?
PIREPs are not currently available within the ADS-B network that we're looking at right now, the FISB system. The last time I looked at the FAA website, it was not there in their most recent list of features to add. But you know, all of these things are possibilities in the future.
I know another thing that comes up, and this can obviously be pretty confusing about ADS-B technology in general, but a lot of people ask, when you've converted over to ADS-B, when you're transmitting your end number and all that's happening, why still have a transponder code?
Why have a transponder code?
Like, why is that still part of the system, I guess is the question some people are asking.
Well, I mean, you still are going to have the ability to actually squawk 7700, 7500, 7600. I mean, depending on a hijack or a scenario, it allows you to actually communicate back a message back to ATC. It also allows them to personally identify airplanes within their own system, how they would do it, and it you know, forces a communication discussion to start.
Okay.
Entering airspace.
Thanks. Another question that came in is from the experimental market, and I know that L-3 is going to make it possible for experimental buyers to be able to purchase direct on that. And the question is, how complex is an installation if you know, for an experimental aircraft builder?
Well, and that is a difficult question. There is some complexity when dealing with devices that require software loading to be enabled, but it comes with an install manual. And basically, what you're looking at, if we were to break it down, you got to have a WASH GPS antenna on the airplane, ground planed well. So it's got to have a good ground plane for your WASH GPS. You can use the existing transponder antenna on there if it's a blade type antenna. So you really only have two major antennas that have to be run to. And if you're using a fresh install with new cabling and an experimental type airplane, the hardwiring is going to be relatively simple. It might take you a little bit longer than a typical avionics shop, but if you followed the directions, you'd have no major issues. Now, when it comes to the software, you would actually use a software tool on a laptop computer to load the device with your information and program it. And they can actually do that via Wi-Fi. Since the device is Wi-Fi enabled, you don't even actually have to connect a cable always to the device. You can if you would like, but you can actually get into maintenance mode via laptop just sitting in the cockpit or near the cockpit with the device on. So it would be a little bit longer process than an avionics shop, but an astute aircraft builder with some electronics experience should be able to navigate it.
And so, as I understand it, when we talk about the traffic technology, so you certainly have the ability of outputting standard TAS, the older technology of traffic, which can be displayed on pretty much any device that accepts a TAS input. That's correct? Yeah.
What we did is, we were really the leader when it came to introducing traffic information to light aircraft in GA through our Skywatch box, and we sold thousands of these boxes across many single-engine lines. I think it crossed some aircraft platform barriers that our sales team never expected. However, with that being said, when we built the Lynx device, we mimicked the protocol that we used with Skywatch. So all of those legacy displays, your Garmin 430s, 530s, even the newer ones, the 650s, 750s, G1000s, all of those, the Avidyne displays, the 540, 440, the EX500, the Pro line, the Honeywell, all of those that had the Skywatch interface, which is just about everything that could display traffic, could display the Lynx traffic.
And then when you go to the ADS-B traffic with all the enhancements that come with that, and the symbology and everything, the vectors that go along with that, that's on Aspen and shortly will be on Avidyne. Is that correct?
Correct. So some of that extra information would not be able to be displayed on some of those legacy displays. However, Aspen and shortly Avidyne will be displaying that ADS-B target with the extra information like your trending information for heading and speed, etc.
Okay. Very good information having to do with that. Taking a look at let's see, the other types of questions that we've got coming in. What about interfaces with Garmin technology?
So right now we will display traffic on just about every Garmin display out there that's post MX20 Garmin 430. Some of the really legacy stuff, they don't have the capability or processing power to display traffic. However, weather information right now will not be displayed on those devices. So right now you won't see the graphical weather or the METARs or TAFs displayed on those devices.
Is weather information available on the Aspen?
Yes, weather information will be displayed on the Aspen right now. They quickly changed their software to make it accessible, and now the weather information is being displayed on the Aspen devices.
Excellent. Can you explain diversity to some of the folks?
Yes, I mean, we look at our NGT-9000, and if you go to the website, some of you are going to look at this product line and be like, man, there's so many different options here. There's an NGT-9000, then there's an NGT-9000 Plus, and I'll get to your question eventually. But the Plus indicates the active traffic has been enabled. Then there's an NGT-9000D, Delta, and that indicates that it's diversity capable. Diversity just means dual antennas. Now typically, the dual antennas would be used on very large aircraft. It would also be used on, there's some European requirements for airplanes to have diversity, and they would be required to have diversity. And then there's some Canadian operators who purchased Lynx and wanted the diversity option right off the bat because eventually they're hoping that the Canadian government is going to provide them with a similar free weather information via a satellite-based system, and a diversity device would be able to receive it from a top-mounted antenna as well. But I typically tell people if you're not going to be flying a large aircraft, Beech 1900 or larger really, you really shouldn't need diversity for any reason. The good thing is if that airplane were to travel overseas, be exported to Europe, and this device actually meets all the mandates that they would have in Europe for ADS-B, and they might want a diversity antenna, we can turn that on via software and add an antenna, and then the customer did not limit themselves by buying a non-diversity unit. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that definitely covers that. Let's see, any updates on the FAA program, rebate program? Do you happen to know anything about where that stands?
Oh, the last time I saw the numbers, I can't remember exactly how many people had actually applied for the rebate and received it. Let me check with my resource here real quick.
I believe we've had about 30, what was there, 10,000 or 20,000 of those available. It was out of there's been it's not been as robust as people would thought. So I think they're up to around 4,000 people who have taken advantage of it. and it's a time frame thing too. You have to understand when you get it, you have a limited time to use it. So you know, the install and the ordering of the equipment, you kind of have to be have your ducks in a row to make sure that you get that time, you get that rebate and installed in a timely fashion.
I do know also from talking to a lot of avionics shops, I mean, the end user really runs point on this. They get on the website, they log in, they follow the procedure. It's not a lot of the avionics shop's responsibility. And it's quite a robust requirement for flight test. Now, a lot of guys, we're looking for an excuse to go fly, so that's the fun part. And $500 is $500. But I think there's been some hesitancy there when they look at some of the requirements for the flight test, et cetera, that some people are like, well, you know what, I may just pass, do my ADS-B upgrade, and move on. But either way, I think it was not received quite as well as some people expected. The first couple of weeks, a lot of sign-ups, but it's slowed a little bit, and that's kind of what we've noticed from the rebate program.
Excellent. Well, I think that brings us pretty close to the end of our time, and I think it's important to make sure that everyone understands the websites that they can go to in order to see that simulator. And if you'd like to say that information again, for how people get there, get the simulator. They can also get it from the App Store, of course, just so that they all know how to reach you.
I wanted to add one more thing. I did see a couple people. The app is available only for your iPad. So if you want, you're not going to be able to, it's just too small on your iPhone to capture all of that information, so we didn't make it applicable for that. So go use your iPad when you're going to the store to download that. Alternatively, if you're on your PC, you can see it on our L3Lynx.com website, and you can use your mouse instead of your finger. So yeah, and I did see one other question. A couple of our experimental people online. We do have a Lynx Direct program now for those who want to buy directly from us. This is for the experimental owners only. And we don't have a lot of information on the website yet about that. But if you call our 800 number 253-9525 or contact Mark or anybody else that's given their contact info on the chat, they'll be able to walk you through that program.
Excellent. Well, again, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time this evening to fill us in on some of the bigger details having to do with ADS-B and clearing up some of the challenges there are into understanding how to find the best solution out there. And, of course, the great demo of this outstanding Lynx system. I know, like I said, I'm very anxious to tear into my panel and do it myself. So we really appreciate you taking the time. To everyone else that has joined us this evening, thank you again for giving us your time as well. We encourage you to go to SocialFlight.com and check it out. This is part of a larger educational series. There'll be more presentations from companies such as L-3 in the future. And again, we really appreciate your time. We'll get that recording out to you as well as the certificates. So Mark, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate what you are doing with SocialFlight, just giving us this platform for the aviation community as a pilot. It's just nice to have this ability to get together in this format and discuss these issues. So appreciate it.
You're welcome. I guess if we're all burning more 100 low lead, we all win, right?
You got that right.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.